third award, our next National LULAC Public Service Award is presented to a gentleman representing California's 34th Congressional District, one of the most diverse and culturally rich districts in the country. He is an assistant whip in the 116th Congress going on now, and a member of the House Committee on Oversight and Reform and the powerful House Committee on Ways and Means. The congressman is also a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus, and the Congressional Progressive Caucus, and a vice chair of the Future Forum. He has worked to pass bipartisan legislation to rename the Los Angeles U.S. Courthouse in honor of civil rights trailblazers Felicitas and Gonzalo Mendez, the first federal courthouse in U.S. history named after a Latina. Let's welcome the 2025 LULAC Public Service Award recipient from California's 34th District, Congressman Jimmy Gomez.
Soy un hombre muy honrado que me gusta lo mejor. A mujeres no me falta ni el dinero ni el amor. Jineteando en mi caballo por la sierra yo me voy. Las estrellas y la luna ellas me dicen dónde voy. Ay, 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 mi amor. Ay, mi morena de mi corazón. Me gusta tocar guitarra, me gusta cantar el son. Mariachi me acompaña cuando canto mi canción. Me gusta tomar mis copas, aguardientes es lo mejor. También el tequila blanco con su sal le da sabor.
It's interesting. One of the things, people always introduce me by my titles or the schools I've gone to, but in the end, I'm just a kid of immigrant parents from Zacatecas and Aguascalientes. My dad was a bracero. He came here to work in the fields. My mom worked in convalescent homes, took care of seniors. And that's who I am. And that's why I fight for all our communities, year in, year out. And this award is in recognition of naming a courthouse, a federal courthouse, after two individuals. It's very unusual. Federal courthouses are actually always named after judges. But what I know is that it's not just judges that shape the law. It is the people that also have the courage to stand up to unjust laws that change our history. And in this case, it was two individuals, a Puerto Riqueña and a Mexicano, who actually stood up. Two parents that said, I want better for my children. And so they challenged this law that really led to Brown v. Board of Education. Most people think that happened in a vacuum, but it did not. So this courthouse, was named after Felicitas and Gonzalo Mendez because those parents stood up. And it is the first federal courthouse to be named after a Latina in U.S. history. And you think, oh, it's easy to name a courthouse. It is not. I got here almost 8 years ago, and the first thing a member came up to me on the floor was about naming this courthouse. But of course, they wanted to name it after a judge. And it's often not a Latino judge, it's often just a judge. So I came up with this idea to name this courthouse years ago, but I had to get the politics just right. So when I decided to introduce the legislation, not everybody agreed with it. There's people in the legal community that couldn't believe I was naming it after two parents who were not even lawyers, not even judges. How can I do that? And I said, because I grew up in a time where when I would go down the streets, I'd go to a civic center, I never saw Latino names on those buildings. And I said, enough. We're going to introduce this legislation and get it passed. And then my staff goes, oh, there's a senator that has a problem. And I said, we're going to run the play and get it done anyways. So we called in all the organizations, LULAC, Unidos, the Hispanic Federation, that used their connections to Schumer to make sure that that bill was included in a package that was passed in January and signed into law by President Biden. So to all of you here, I just want to all the young people, you got to claim your space. You got to make sure that they don't erase us from the history books or make sure that we're included in the first place. This is not about wanting something that we don't deserve. We deserve it because we've been there. We've been fighting the fight, but oftentimes people ignore those contributions. Just like the contributions of my parents or your parents or Felicitas and Gonzalo that really have shaped who we are. So this courthouse is a big deal because there's so many people that want it to be named after somebody else. And you have to say, even if it's a senator that's against it, even if it's judges, we're going to get this done. And that's what we did. But you know what? If it wasn't for LULAC, the case that was decided, Mendez versus Westminster School Board in 1946, LULAC helped fund that case. Most people forget that. And you all need to remember that you were a part of that history. So I want to say thank you to LULAC for this recognition, but thank you for funding this court case that helped desegregate all schools in the United States of America and made us a more perfect union. Thank you so much.